Hey listeners, welcome back. It's Kat again, and I'm here for season 2, episode 2 of the Pantydeal podcast. This one is called Demystifying Fetishes for panty lovers and newcomers. So, as the title shows, we are today talking all about fetish. So, last episode I talked about how to boost your sales when you think you're done. It was a really great episode, really trying to help sellers revitalize their business. So if that sounds like you and you haven't listened to it yet, please go ahead and have a listen. You can find it on our magazine on the website. But yeah, as promised in this season, we're exploring more issues around fetish and sexuality and new perspectives. So that's why we've decided to do fetishes in this episode, because frankly, that's why we're all here. They use panty fetish. But despite the fact that the use underwear fetish is what's bringing us all together here, well, not most, a lot of sellers on Pantydeal don't really know anything about the fetish itself, what the fetish is, where it comes from, maybe even what fetishes actually are, like what's the definition of fetishes, that kind of stuff. That's what we're going to talk all about today. So yeah, panty selling is definitely a misunderstood thing. If you're a seller, you might have experienced judgment for selling your underwear, or you might just not tell anyone about it. You might just hide your business from your friends or your family. It's quite common, but I think it's super important to talk about these kind of things and make them open and kind of understand what the business is about, and really remove shame, remove taboo, that type of thing. So today we're going to talk about all of this and more. We're going to talk about what the panty fetish is, its popularity, its history, some of the psychology behind it. But we're also going to talk about one of the other most common famous fetish objects, which is feet. Yep, we're going to go very, very far into feet. By the end of this podcast, you'll be fetish gurus. And not only that, hopefully if you're a seller, hopefully you'll at least know a bit more about the industry you're involved in and feel informed. So to start with, the main question on everyone's minds, what actually is a fetish? So I'm going to go quite official here. So sexual or erotic fetishism it just means a sexual fixation on a non-living object, which if you're able to experience or hold this object, you're able to receive sexual gratification from it. So people who have these will often believe that they have to have, or just hold or see this object in order to orgasm. So basically a fetish, and specifically a fetish object, the object that is fetishized, it's just something that really, really, really turns you on. Again, maybe you're now thinking about your own fetishes. We all have them. What makes these fetishes, as opposed to just normal kind of desires, is the fact that the object of the fixation is something that's not normally perceived as sexual. And again, obviously that's hard to say what's normal. We all have general beliefs around that. And that the fascination with this object is very, very extreme. So it's more than just I kind of like feet, or I'm not totally grossed out by feet. If you have a foot fetish, you really, really like feet to a very, very extreme extent, and that's what makes it a fetish. And also with feet, the fact that they're not typically a sexual part of the body. They're not an erotic zone, they're not genitalia. Yeah, they're outside the norms, which is what makes them a fetish object to people who really, really love feet. To explain it differently, for example, if you really, really love boobs, which many of us do because they're wonderful, it doesn't mean you have a boob fetish. One, because they're very common objects of sexual desire. I think, anyone who is sexually attracted to women finds boobs a real turn on, because they're kind of a sign of femininity. They make the female body as opposed to male, all that kind of stuff. And then two, because for your love for boobs to be a fetish, it would have to be, like I said, a really, really extreme love of boobs. You'd have to, have boobs plastered all over your walls and think about them every second of every day, and, tattoo yourself with boobs, all that kind of stuff. It would have to be like really, really extreme. But like I said, I don't think it's possible to even have a boob fetish because they're not an object that's not normally sexualized. Lots of people, as I said, do have sexual fetishes, or in other words, kinks. And they're defined as fetishes because they're out of the ordinary. So you might have heard about kinky sex and wondered what that is. Obviously, that's related to fetishes. You would describe someone having kinky sex because they're having sex that's just outside what, in quote marks, normal sex, the normal sex people are having. But obviously that raises the question of just what on earth is normal these days. I think everyone knows about, or maybe has experienced some choking in sex, or, spanking, role playing, light bondage, all that kind of stuff is actually really common these days and also really openly spoken about. So frankly, normal's not really a thing anymore. And also everyone who's maybe not been living under a rock or who's watched Orange Is the New Black will have heard of the used panty fetish as well. So fetishes are definitely in the mainstream. A 2016 study actually found that 75% of people admitted to having a sexual fetish. Yeah, and that's not really that surprising when you think about just how many there are out there. And this study also actually found that 61% of people said that they felt there was a stigma attached to fetish, which is quite interesting. So some of the most popular fetishes out there, alongside the ones we're going to talk about today, are BDSM, voyeurism, which is when you get turned on by watching others, particularly during sexual acts, doing sexual things. Also exhibitionism, which is kind of the opposite of that. It's when people are turned on by being watched whilst having sex or doing sexual acts. Yeah, I mean, many studies have tried to figure out why people have fetishes and where they come from. As with a lot of psychological studies and studies of the brain and people, there's rarely conclusions reached because, it's kind of impossible to say where a fetish comes from. There's so many different factors, but we will today give some of the most common theories, so don't worry, you won't be leaving clueless. There is actually one belief that men tend to have fetishes more than women because men in general are more turned on by visual stimuli, which means they're more turned on by what they see. I kind of think that maybe that's why men tend to watch porn more than women, but again, that's me speculating, who knows. And so, to our first fetish, the used panty fetish or underwear fetishism. So if you're just starting to sell your panties on Pantydeal, you might have absolutely no idea about the fetish. You might just have joined Pantydeal to make some money or to have fun, meet people, whatever. And of course you can do those things and you can do them successfully, but it is actually really important to know about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and maybe to think about where your customers are coming from and what their motives are. So the used panty fetish has actually been around for years, and like I said, it's one of the most common fetishes out there. But as with most fetishes, it does feel a bit taboo. It's not often talked about. It's not really celebrated. Some people might think it's a bit weird. Again, that makes it all the more important to demystify and to talk about it. It's just like choking, spanking, role play, whatever a fetish is. So is buying and enjoying of used panties, and sometimes selling your used panties to buyers can be, a form of a fetish itself. If you enjoy that act and if you enjoy or get kind of sexual pleasure out of selling your panties and, imagining the person who buys them. A survey not that long ago of thousands of people actually found that around 10% of people admitted to having an underwear fetish. I mean, when you think about the fact that means if you had, 100 people in a room, maybe you were at a gig or something like that, 10 people would have an underwear fetish. That's actually quite a lot. More than I initially thought. But actually, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of buyers on Pantydeal and similar sites. So again, that just shows that there is a really popular fetish. There's lots of people out interested in that kind of thing. Yeah. So what is a used panty fetish? To start with, someone with a used panty fetish is someone who gets sexual excitement from used panties as an object, as a thing. And the fetish can involve touching, holding, smelling these. Sometimes just looking at a photo of them is a turn on. Sometimes watching somebody put used panties on, take them off can be part of the turn on, part of the fetish. For a lot of used panty fetishes, it begins private in adolescence, in teenage years. Yeah, stealing panties out of a laundry basket is maybe a bit of a cliche, but it's actually probably more common than you think. It's a lot of people's early stories when they talk about how their fetish began. Generally, the used panty fetish is linked to a wider fetish someone will have for undergarments in general. So that includes stockings, bras, pantyhose, sometimes even socks, which also can link to the fetish we will go into later. But the actual buying and selling officially of used panties began and became really popular in Japan in the 1990s, and it was called Burusera, Burusera. Yeah, and these shops then popped up all over Japan, and there was actually vending machines too, which actually still exist in Japan. Give it a quick Google, maybe you've even seen some in your travels. Yeah, and in these, fetishes could buy packaged, fresh, used underwear from girls, and it would often come alongside details about the girl, about the underwear, and even a photo of the girl who'd worn them. So for decades, private transactions have been taking place, kind of on the internet, that kind of thing. And only in recent years have marketplaces like Pantydeal actually popped up to kind of enable buyers and sellers to connect in a more simple way and make these transactions safer for everyone, easier. But yeah, I mean, when you're first thinking about the fetish and you don't know much about it, you might wonder, how can someone get sexual pleasure out of a pair of old undies? It could seem super weird to you. Firstly, like I said, we can never really know what gets people off. We're turned on by such strange things. Sometimes you just do, and you can't really explain it. But actually, if you dig a bit deeper, there is pretty solid reasoning behind the use underwear fetish. So firstly, underwear is actually very, very sexy. Underwear is gorgeous, like strip teases, everything, underwear itself is beautiful. For most people, watching their partner or their lover, just looking at them in their underwear is really sexy. It's a turn on in itself, and the underwear is part of that, the shape of it and how it fits on the body, all that kind of stuff. It's not uncommon for couples actually to wear each other's underwear as a kind of sexy game or foreplay. And I think definitely leaving your used panties in your lover's bedroom after, a really wonderful night of passion is exciting, but why? Why is it exciting? Sometimes just the fabric and the shape and the design of the underwear can be a turn on, especially if you're a woman, and underwear shopping is one of the funnest things ever. Buying new underwear makes you feel amazing. Think about all the lace and the silk and all the flattering shapes you can find. They're just very, very pretty, really nice objects to hold, nice objects to feel, whatever. But also panties are sexy because of where they are on your body. We wear them under our clothing, which makes them, secret and hidden, mysterious. They also cover and touch our most intimate and kind of sexual areas, the most intimate and sexual areas of our body, our genitalia, our butt. It's this aspect of panties that most fetishists get off on. Most fetishists, a pair of used panties holds the scent of a gorgeous woman's body. It's been in close proximity to the vagina and the butt, and that's an incredibly sexy thought and something to fantasize about. So for a used panty fetishist, being able to hold and smell these used panties from a woman they desire or think is gorgeous makes them feel close to that woman, make a fantasy, greater, more enjoyable. But just a way to feel connection. Also, being turned on by smell is one of the most natural, instinctive human things there is. You probably know about pheromones. We're physically and sexually attracted to people, sometimes by pheromones alone, and if you can't really imagine what that's like, just try to imagine the smell of the hair of your lover. It smells like the most amazing thing in the world, and that's your pheromones, drawing them to you just through smell. Pheromones are how mammals communicate that they're fertile and sexually ready. So there's kind of a reason that the smell of used panties is going to be sexy and just enjoyable and nice. But aside from that, what we smell can just be a strong trigger for memory. Smelling a pair of used panties can sometimes just remind people of the act of sex, which is then arousing, or it can remind them of their partner's body or an amazing time sexually they had in the past. And again, all of these can cause sexual excitement. So it's for that reason as well, as I mentioned earlier, that underwear fetish doesn't stop at panties. So for the same reason that used panties are a turn on, the smell, their intimacy and proximity to the female body, their shape, colour, etc. It's for that reason that stockings, tights, bras, etc., similar items of clothing, are also part of the fetish and also a turn on. So if you're enjoying selling used panties on Pantydeal, but maybe you've sold is used panties, you could think about other items you want to sell, because if you're enjoying the idea of it and getting a bit of a thrill out of it, then go further, maybe chat to some of your buys and see if they're interested in your bras or tights, anything like that. You never know what people are kind of curious about inside their minds and what they might want to explore and what you can help them explore and explore with them. And finally, in answer to a really big question people might have about a used panty fetish is, no, it's not strange or bad to have an underwear fetish. No way. As long as there's, respect and consent involved in a transaction of used underwear, there's definitely nothing wrong with it. As long as everyone's happy and everyone's comfortable, it's just an exploration, celebration of a different part of sexuality, frankly. Yeah, people who are engaging in this fetish are just exploring themselves and enjoying new things that other people are maybe scared to try. If you're listening and you're curious about it, maybe it's best to start with finding people to talk to about it, open up to about it. If you don't know anyone immediately in your friendship circles, maybe you can try fetish communities online, or you can talk to people on Pantydeal, on the chat. Met loads of members are really amazing and really willing to help and really chat. So again, if it sounds like you share your desires, talk about it, whatever, and hopefully at least now you feel I have informed you about the used underwear fetish. I really, really hope so. And now turning to our second fetish of the episode, foot fetishism. Okay, some of you might be thinking, feet, gross. I know my feet aren't personally my favourite part of my body. I actually often shy away from anyone touching my feet. They are Not my favourite part of myself. But for some people, feet are a real turn on. People with a foot fetish get sexual pleasure and excitement from looking at, touching, holding, massaging, whatever. Another name for foot fetishism is podophilia. So alongside these panty fetishes, foot fetish is one of the most common, as I said. One study actually found 1 in 7 people have had a sexual fantasy in which feet or toes played a big part, and it's more common in men and women. There's actually quite a few famous feet fetishes in the media. Quentin Tarantino has a very non-secret foot fetish. If you ever watch any of his films, there's always lots of women doing things with feet. Feet get a lot of screen time for Tarantino. Also, Enrique Iglesias admitted to having a foot fetish. Pharrell Williams, Elvis Presley, yeah, actually loads more. But where does foot fetish come from? Again, it's one of those, as I met bloke. But again, the main question on everyone's minds, where does the foot fetish come from? Because it can seem super weird if you're not into feet as a thing. But some studies think that a foot fetish is a learned behaviour. To explain this, someone might have had a partner who stimulated their genitals with their feet. This could have led to a really great orgasm. And if you didn't have a foot fetish before that, you might, from that experience, desire it to be repeated and, become to associate feet with sexual pleasure. And then that way, a foot fetish can be born. Other studies suggest that those who adore others' feet might have sexually submissive tendencies. I mean, we all know the phrase worshipping at someone's feet. So I guess it's not uncommon for those with a foot fetish to ask a partner to treat them, to dominate them. And if you have a foot fetish and you love massaging feet, for example, that's a kind of, a desire to serve someone else. So yeah, it's associated with that, which is part of BDSM. Actually not that uncommon for those with a foot fetish to ask a partner to treat them like an actual footrest. I saw that online not long ago, which sounds kind of wonderful, I think, to use someone as a footrest. Maybe I'll try it out. I'll let you know how it goes. So as with the used panty fetish, I think a part of this fetish can be explained quite easily. Because to some foot fetishes, feet are just beautiful. They're just beautiful objects, beautiful parts of the body. So in the way, as I mentioned, someone, boobs might be beautiful, hair might be really beautiful, eyes might be beautiful. To others, feet, I think, are in that same bracket. They're beautiful in that same way. A foot fetish just takes this kind of adoration of the body part to the next level. And if you don't think you are a foot fetishist, but you do like to have your feet fondled or massaged, you are definitely not alone. Feet are a very powerful sensory body part. We actually have around 200,000 nerve endings in the sole of each foot, which is kind of insane. But that is why foot massages do generally feel really, really good, and why it's actually maybe not that surprising for foot stuff to be involved with sex stuff. It actually makes total sense. And foot fetishists, long-term foot fetishists, will tend to have favourite kind of parts of the feet or types of feet. And this varies just as it will vary who people are just attracted to in general. So some people might really prefer big feet, wide feet. Some people might like really dainty feet. Some people might be attracted to really clean feet. Some people might like really dirty feet, polished, unpolished toenails, whatever. Some people just, they'll just figure out what they like and their tastes will go from there. And some foot fetishes, objects, as I mentioned, like socks, shoes and tights, become objects of desire and arousal due to their association with feet. For loads of people, the smell of feet is actually a real turn on. Often the more potent the better. Which is, that could have saved me a lot of trouble. And the ways people often enjoy a foot fetish depend just on how comfortable they are and maybe how willing they find partners to be, that kind of stuff. Some people, as I said, just enjoy touching or massaging feet or having their own feet touched or massaged, but people with a foot fetish tend to like to be the ones holding the feet and touching the feet, doing the touching, if that makes sense. Some like to kiss feet or suck them, lick them. Some people actually enjoy incorporating feet into sex. So you could use feet to stimulate genitals, maybe to touch nipples, that kind of thing. Some people actually use toes for penetration, which I find very interesting, frankly. If you're curious about exploring the foot fetish, but the idea of toe penetration freaks you out, don't worry. I think that's very understandable. Because as I said with the underwear fetish, if you're curious about something, just, find a partner you're comfortable with, talk about it, and just try things out. Try a little foot massage, then you could try some foot stimulation, just see how it goes, see what you both like. See where it takes you and just enjoy stuff, because fetishes, they're all about enjoyment and exploration and gratification and breaking down those taboos and those boundaries. So there's really just loads to explore. explore. So it feels like we've covered quite a lot in this episode, but really we've only scraped the surface of fetish. I'm sure I could have gone into way more detail on all of these things. Maybe in some later episodes we could actually talk to people with these fetishes. It could be, super interesting. Hopefully listeners, you now feel clued up about what a fetish is, about how varied they can be, how many of them there are, how common they are, and hopefully if you're in the panty selling industry on Pantydeal, you now feel like you understand the panty fetish more. And what you're doing makes more sense to you, and maybe you can start to enjoy it more as well, and feel less shame around it if that is something that you feel. And also you feel like you can understand and talk to your customers more, and if you feel like you understand them, then when you're having conversations, they'll be able to sense that, and it'll be a really, used underwear transactions will just be a nicer process for all of you. Fetishes are in general, they're exciting, and like I said, they exist as ways in which people explore themselves and their sensations and their sexuality, and overall just the more openly we talk about them, the better. I think everyone should be talking about this stuff, to be honest. Society would be way more chilled out and satisfied, I think. So as usual, definitely keep checking our magazine for regular content on everything sex and fetish, news, panty, interviews. And also if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I have a weird fetish, or I have, a certain fetish that I'm curious about, or I want to learn more about, or you've just heard of a fetish maybe that you also want to know more about, please let us know. You could appear in our next podcast, or we're always open to ideas for content for our podcasts. Maybe you have some testimony, or maybe an experience, maybe just a question. But if that's you, please write to us at pr@pantydeal.com. We'll respond as soon as we can. We are always listening and always ready to answer your questions and help in any way we can. So this has been season 2, episode 2. Thank you so much for listening. This is Kat again, and see you next time.